You know a franchise is big if people are nostalgic for a spin-off crossover product getting its own loving reimagining. When LEGO Star Wars first launched, no one could have imagined the series stretching all the way to 9th gen hardware. After years of honing their craft across a myriad of games, Traveler's Tales has returned to its roots. This time around with a brand new engine and design philosophy, boasting dozens of open worlds, hundreds of playable characters, and all 9 Star Wars episodes, the Skywalker Saga is set to be the biggest game in LEGO history. Shame that all that ambition crumbles under the weight of some suboptimal design choices. What am I talking about? How could a LEGO Star Wars game not be a slam dunk? I mean, sure, we've had some totally unnecessary LEGO tie-in games. Hello, LEGO Incredibles. But LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens was amazing enough to rank in our top-rated Star Wars games. So what led TT Games from crafting one of the best LEGO games in years to such a middling mess? Well, for one, there's the whole demoralizing, harrowing report by Polygon regarding the studio's turbulent last few years. To start, you can really see the scars of development hell. Certain set pieces, such as the new pod racing course on Tatooine and the speeder chase on Pasana, feel as though they never quite left the beta stage. The engine swap means certain features that were handled brilliantly last time, like the shooting and vehicle combat, are only a close approximation at best. They lack the spark they once had, leaving a gnawing sense of how much better this game should have been given the talent behind it. That's the fundamental issue with the Skywalker Saga. It's rarely bad, but it's never quite the exceptional, jaw-dropping thrill ride TT Games is known for. They've done things with the Star Wars IP over the years that far exceed the creativity of those helming the films, which is why the sheer mundanity of LEGO Star Wars' latest is so perplexing. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga is technically about playing through all 9 central Star Wars films. All DLC currently announced is just additional character packs themed around spin-offs, so it's safe to assume that what's in the box is all that we're getting. As such, I really have to ask, why on earth is the majority of this game nothing but side quests that have next to nothing to do with the films? First, there are the fetch quests for recovering a number of items, or destroying a certain number of items, or that require going to another planet to fetch something before you can open a door on a different planet. Then there are the races that can sometimes take under 10 seconds to complete, and the dogfights against the same cluster of enemies with no variation or unique environment to fight around. To be fair, there's also capital shipboarding, which is at least novel the first time you do it, but even it has a formula. Or worst of all, there's the elaborate platforming sequences that are more likely to frustrate rather than entertain. All of these issues, that's the majority of LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. This is the game whenever you're not in a specific story mission, and even then, several sub-objectives borrow mechanics from these side quests. It's the sort of walking, talking checklist that would do an Ubisoft open world game proud. There is, without any question, vastly more content here than in virtually any other LEGO Star Wars game. It's the humor and novelty that takes a substantial hit. It's not all to waste. A vastly improved melee combat system offers a Devil May Cry-esque suite of moves, but is just as easily button mashed by younger players. Though there are a few areas where players will find some friction, the overall flow of gameplay has never been better. This is the LEGO Star Wars gameplay you imagined as a kid. The variety of stages and sandbox environments is equally fantastic. Navigating Naboo is a wholly different experience than, say, Tatooine, Kamino, or Takodana. Though the side content is repetitious, they do at least offer different types depending on where you're at. For instance, playing as a villain is far more useful aboard the Death Star than, say, being a Jedi. A few levels also bring back the split teams mechanic from LEGO Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars for good measure. Character classes are also more distinct, with dedicated upgrades to invest in across all of them. These range from foundational, like a combat support probe droid for all villains, to utterly pointless, such as the Scavenger having the ability to use different colors for their gadgets. These are equivalent in cost, to be clear. The core skill tree is what you'll want to invest in the most with the game's new collectible, Kyber Bricks. Kyber Bricks replace the Power Bricks and other collectibles of previous games. Other than the odd data card used for unlocking bonus extras like stud multipliers and a few keychains to unlock certain vehicles, Kyber Bricks are the majority of what you'll be collecting. There's over 1,000 of them. Mini-kits are barely a factor this time, only appearing in a handful of scripted levels.
Breathe. Now, reach out.
To be fair, it's not unusual for some moments from the films to be purely cutscenes or merely a fraction of a larger level. The series has always done this. What's more perplexing is having only the Cliff Notes versions of each movie in what's supposed to be the biggest LEGO Star Wars ever. The pitch before launch was that open worlds would allow for the smaller moments to sprinkle in organically, outside of moving exposition to when players are running around, and a few smaller moments like going to Dexter's bar. The sandbox levels are actually pretty divorced from the main narrative. I really tried to find some rock-solid storytelling that LEGO Star Wars is known for. Stuff like the Freemaker Chronicles and LEGO Star Wars The Force Awakens were honestly two of my favorite Star Wars stories in a while. And despite consistently great voice acting for most of the episodes, Skywalker Saga falls flat when it comes to storytelling. The sole exceptions are Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. These campaigns have memorable uses of the open world, as well as narrative tweaks that make for a better journey, particularly with, of all things, Anakin and Padme's romance. By contrast, the sequel trilogy easily suffers the most, particularly whoever they cast to play as Finn. He is so clearly not John Boyega, although the guy they got for Poe Dameron isn't much better. Now, you might think that the lack of narrative nuance is for the sake of the humor, which is not unreasonable, but that's not the case. Some jokes are uproariously good, but others fall flat. The humor would change in style enough that I had to wonder if each episode had its own separate creative team. It's also worth noting that the much vaunted mumble mode, which allows you to turn off the dialogue like in the original LEGO Star Wars, didn't actually offer much additional humor beyond the initial novelty. It's there if you want it, but realistically speaking, you're still going to need to have the subtitles on, especially when doing side quests. The humor isn't the only inconsistency, as there's a peculiar shift in what's acceptable for a LEGO Star Wars game. Just a few years ago, LEGO characters could give a peck on the cheek or the face, and if not die, then something equivalent occurred to get them out of the story. There was some tension to it all, real stakes alongside a cavalcade of laughs. LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, meanwhile, restrains itself over necessary story moments only to make some scenes weirdly darker. One death in particular is played out heavily for humor, while others are skirted around. Previously poignant scene to Kylo Ren's depth now just turns him into an amoral, unrepentant jerk that conflicts with his entire overall character arc. I'm not asking for Mass Effect here, just a clear through line. If LEGO Star Wars was nothing but a loving parody with jokes for young and old fans, sure, I'd be on board with that. If it was a kid-friendly director's cut of the saga, making it more age-appropriate but adding a little depth where need be, I'd be down for that too. Or if they tried to really bring it all together in this story-heavy focus like the Lego-ified Force Awakens, sure, any of these would work, but flip-flopping constantly between them isn't ideal. It leads to what might be the most tonally inconsistent LEGO game I've played in some time, which is not a thing anyone expects to say when playing a LEGO game.
What is this?
The Aki Aki Festival of the Ancestors.
I've never seen anything like this.
I've never seen so few wayfinders.
That's LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga to a T. Everything is messy, never truly great. Maybe part of it was the engine swap. As I said, the third-person shooting in the vehicle sections don't feel quite the same either. The stealth mechanics are really awkward and were prone to glitching. Overall, the game feel is less LEGO and more Disney Infinity-esque. Other times, it's purely an artistic choice, like looping the same song from a soundtrack at a location, no matter if it fits the tone of casual exploration, or how you can go from gorgeously framed scenes to flat, lifeless framing in the same story beat. Reviewing this game made me feel like I was losing my mind. Every now and then, it gets so good that I think maybe it was turning a corner. Then it'd do something mind-boggling again, and it was like I stepped on a Lego brick. Which isn't getting into the instability issues, with some glitches requiring a restart or really finagling the mechanics to keep progressing. Other times, graphical assets from the skybox would just load into the main game for no clear reason. It's clear that the protracted development cycle did not lead to giving them more time to get things done right, and instead, a constant constant struggle to get this out the door. I love that you can use the sandbox environments to achieve things in ways other than the developers intended. It's one of the few positives to this shift in design philosophy. Those sorts of solutions shouldn't be a necessity though. There are also some loading screens going upwards of 2 to 5 minutes despite other levels loading seamlessly that were far larger, and I'm playing on PC. I'm scared to think of how long the loading screens might be on Nintendo Switch. There are clearly a few LEGO blocks out of place under the hood. I can't understate how much I was looking forward to LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga. After the amazing burst of creativity during TT Games' last outing, it's just so disappointing I had to spend more time parsing apart the tangled mess of design than appreciating the bright spots. Which there are. There's a lot to love in this game. It just takes considerable patience to get to the good stuff. The lore nods, the in-jokes that only absolute mega Star Wars nerds will get. You can feel the effort, it's just not coming together right. It's tragically both under and overcooked in all the wrong ways. It does enough right for you to get something out of it, but nothing actually warrants going for 100% completion. That might sound perfectly fine, but for a TT Games LEGO project, that's a weird place to be.
What are you doing out here?
I was so worried about you. Obi-Wan said you had turned to the dark side?
I have brought peace to the Republic. Together, you and I can rule the galaxy.
Obi-Wan was right. You've changed.